Welcome to Penny for Your Shots, conversations and cocktails with brilliant women. I'm your host, Penny Fitzgerald, and I believe the best stories are the ones shared over a glass of wine or a cocktail. Each week, I sit down with women who've said yes to building something meaningful, often after years of putting everyone else first. We talk business, big dreams, and the mess in between. And of course, a few favorite drinks. So grab a glass, get comfy, and let's pour ourselves into Penny for Your Shots. Ever felt like you were climbing the ladder of success, only to realize it was leaning against the wrong wall? This week, I'm talking with Aoife Roche, a powerhouse entrepreneur who left behind the corporate grind, became a world champion fitness model, and built a business that reflects her values, her vision, and her voice. We talk about resilience, identity, success guilt, yep, it's a real thing, and what it really takes to rebuild your confidence when life or business knocks you sideways. Plus, we get real about boundaries, relationships, and the whispers that won't leave you alone, the ones nudging you towards something more. You're going to want a notebook for this one. Here is Aoife Roche.
So I'm going to answer the first question before you ask, and this is probably going to be how to pronounce my name. It's Aoife.
Aoife, okay. How do you pronounce your last name as well?
It's Roach. The spelling is very misleading when people look at my name.
It's Irish, correct?
Correct, yeah. Yeah, I'm Irish.
Wonderful.
How Irish are you? I'm like, no, I'm really Irish. They're like, you don't look Irish. And I'm like, yeah, I understand that, but I'm really Irish.
Yeah, well, okay, so my last name's Fitzgerald, but I married
Okay,
into
so
it.
you're Irish too, for
Well,
sure.
only by name.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, you've got like the red,
I
you have the ancestry, I would say.
Well, I don't know. My parents allegedly were all German, so I came from,
Okay, yeah, yeah.
but who knows? It's not that far from
No, it's
Ireland.
not. No, no, no. That's when people say to me, I'm like, the Spanish Armada invaded Ireland. I was like, that's probably why. I probably had a rogue ancestor somewhere along the line because I don't look like the traditional Irish person.
Well, that's
So tell me a
awesome.
little bit more about you, Penny, just before we start.
Yeah. Well, I am in Iowa part-time. I'm here in the summer in Iowa. And then in the winter, as soon as it gets cold here, I go to Florida. My husband and I
Nice.
have a home in Sarasota as well.
Oh, nice. I heard that's beautiful with the white sandy beaches.
It's gorgeous. Yeah. Very, very calming.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, that's great so that you can have both places so you can avoid the weather.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So what brought you to the United States?
So I came to speak at an event in 2021 and that went really well. I've always wanted to, I was supposed to move in 2011 and then it didn't happen and I kind of compromised on living in London.
Hmm.
And I spent 8 years in London trying to make it fit, but it just didn't. And then I was like, no, this is just my goal, my vision. So I came here just after the pandemic. I spoke at an event here, it went really well, and then I just decided to stay. And then so then took the business from the UK and then created the business here and got an E2 investor visa. So it all worked out. It was a little bit of a challenge, but we got there in the end. It all worked out really well.
Well, that's great. That's great. So you were doing the same type of business
In
in
Ireland,
Europe?
yes. Yeah, so my background was in corporate. I spent 10 years in corporate, getting to the top of the ladder, team of 27 men, tier one financial
Oh,
institution on the
wow.
C-suite to realize actually now I've arrived here, it's no different and I still have to fight for my spot every single day. You know what I mean? I'm always going to be underrated, undervalued.
Hmm.
That's just it's changing, but those corporate organizations, it's just like that, right? So I
Hmm.
looked at all the women above me. There wasn't many, but they were divorced, they were having affairs, their kids were fighting with them, they were working 12 to 15 hours a day. And I thought, you know what? Absolutely not. This is
Yeah.
not for me. If this is what success looks like, I think I've taken the wrong path.
Oh gosh. You're
So
speaking my
then,
language.
yeah. So then when I went home after traveling for what I thought was going to be a couple of weeks in the pandemic,
Hmm.
which ended up being like 2 years. So there was a big push in Ireland at that time where every business owner was given two grants of $5,000 to build their online business. So I just took advantage of the opportunity, and the rest is history then after that.
Nice.
Hmm.
Wow. Okay, so that really gave you the launch that you needed to get
Yeah, because
started.
everyone needed to be online and everyone needed to be online fast.
Right. So what did you do? What did you start with?
Everything, the mistake that everyone makes, full service, Facebook ads, Google ads, website builds, Facebook management, Instagram management, the whole thing. Now we've slimmed down. Now I still do a lot of those services, but I don't advertise them. I only advertise us as a LinkedIn marketing agency. So that's really because that's where I see the highest ROI for people if they make the investment in the platform. But it's not a sexy platform, right? It's
Mm.
just not, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
But at the same time, but if we have clients that are like, we need a website or we need ads or, we need, then I'll do it. But as a full service is just really difficult. And in the advancement of AI, like I literally started an ad campaign there that I needed to launch at like 10:45, and I've it launched and up and running now because we can write all the copy with AI, we could do all like the graphics with AI. So I think it's a dying business. Where it's going to be people are just going to train people who are smart in AI to become their media managers. So I think it was probably a good move to kind of transition a little bit out of that because I see that dying
Yeah. Interesting. Well, the more specialized you get, the more action you take, it kind of leads to clarity, right? On which
for
path to
sure.
take.
And I think, and the clarity comes from what you don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I was on a podcast yesterday and they asked me that. They said, how are you so definite and so confident in what you do? And I said, no, I've just failed more times than you guys have tried. That's
Yeah.
all that it is. You know what I mean? You just learn the
Mhm.
hard way in many cases. But
Yeah.
you learn and then you go, okay, I'm not going to do that again. And that's kind of how I found that I've kind of had the accelerated growth. The accelerated growth is going from one failure to another failure quickly without any loss of enthusiasm.
Oh gosh, that's big. That is big. I feel too that the more resilient you can be, it's the ones who stick with it that are the ones who win. The only way you lose is by quitting, right?
Exactly. Like it's only a failure if you say it's a failure, right? Otherwise, it can
Mm.
be reframed as it's a learning lesson or, what is this trying to teach me? But I think what I did a video on this last, said too many people identify just because something was a failure doesn't mean you're a failure. And then
Right.
they get tangled up in their identity because just like I had two partnerships dissolved in the first 6 months of this year, it was enough to derail anyone at like
Mm.
tens of thousands of dollars. And I was just like, oh, well, okay, let's just rework it. We obviously didn't build it correctly the first time. Let's try it again. And I think it's like that's a good point that you made. It's about that resilience that we might have a day or two feeling sorry for ourselves, and then we got to dust ourselves off, put our big girl pants on, and go back out into the world with no loss of enthusiasm.
Yeah. How do you do that? How would you suggest somebody listening to this might reframe it so that they can be that resilient and yeah, let's do it again.
Yeah, you know what? And this is really important. What I do is I don't really vocalize or talk about what I'm doing a lot of the time to people. Because I think when you talk about what you're doing to people, you sometimes dilute the vision of what you're doing, especially if you're talking to people about who haven't done what you're trying to do. Right.
Oh,
So then
yeah.
you open yourself up to this like negative feedback and which can create an internal narrative. And then when things go wrong, I also don't really talk to people about it because I'm like, people are going to, people are our friends and they want to justify and they want to rationalize and they want to tell us all of the ways that the other person was wrong and how we've been hard done by. But all that does is just keeps us stuck. So I've kind of learned to be very stoic in my successes and stoic in my failures. And then just kind of go, okay, now what do I need to do? And then when I come out the other end, I'll discuss what happened. But I think too many people and then you just get tangled up in this colluding, and then that dilutes the vision and it just amplifies the emotions that we feel, especially if someone's buying into your story and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I can't believe they did this to me, or I can't believe that happened. And then we just
Mm-hmm.
get stuck in the story.
Right.
So it's like, every time that I try to catch, and of course we're humans, we're always like, we always like to talk. But when I catch myself colluding, I have like a trigger in my mind that goes, actually, um, you're moving away from your vision by this behavior right now. You're giving your power away to other people.
Mm.
That you don't have enough in you to be able to be self-assured to be able to do it yourself. And that for me has been probably one of the biggest game changers. And then if something goes wrong, I'm not really that worried about it because the only person who has to deal with it is me. Because I haven't made a big deal about it to anyone. And then I think that's what I found has been really helpful.
That's great. Yeah, well, I think our friends mean well,
Yeah.
right? I mean, they're just trying to protect us, trying to keep us safe, and our own nervous system is trying to do the same thing, trying to keep us safe. But that's what keeps us small.
Because, so I wrote a book back in 2018 called How to Think Yourself Attractive. And the whole premise of the book is attractiveness is mental, not physical. And it talks about that exact point, right? Our ego is concerned with safety, security, and survival, right? That's its core concern, but it's your best ally, but it's your worst advisory.
Mm,
And,
brilliant.
like when we're trying to do something that's outside of our comfort zone, or when we're trying to do something that we don't really know how to do it, like situations and all sorts of things will start to happen that are almost to try to derail you. But when you can identify to go, actually, well, why is that happening? Like, why did this person not pay me? Why did this
Mm,
person say that? And become more the observer rather than
mm,
the participant, then it becomes a lot easier because our egos can only reference the past. So we can only
mhm,
look at the past to go, what happened before? And then that it gives us that world view of this is a fixed outcome because this happened before, it's going to happen again. But
mm,
that's not the case, right? And you've got to be very anchored and very clear on this is what I want to do. And even if it does fail. So as people say to me, well, what if it fails? And I say, even if, it'll be fine. We've
mhm.
survived everything up until now. I'm sure we've a
Yeah.
100% success rate for survival up until today,
Up until
you
now. Yeah.
up until now. So we've got a good success rate. So I try to like be very, very anchored in that. And like, but it all boils down to what we talked about resilience and
Mhm.
understanding that identifying failure. Just because you identify a failure in your life doesn't mean you identify as a failure.
Right. Absolutely. Well,
Mhm.
and the better question instead of what if you fail is, well, what if I succeed? What if
For
it
sure.
becomes more than I even can envision?
And
Because that's usually
a
the
lot of
case.
people, and even I would argue, I think I've gotten a little bit better at it by now, but a lot of us have success guilt. We're actually
Oh,
afraid to succeed
oh, tell
because,
me about that.
yeah. So when we're with people and whatever layer and level that we're on, we broker social agreements with people, consciously or unconsciously. I'm going to be this way and you're going to be that way, and this is
Mm,
why we're going to get along. And this is our dynamic, right? But then as you start to evolve and as you start to change, you start to shift the dynamic of that agreement. So let's say if we look at someone who's trying to lose weight. So in a partnership, they're in a partnership and they're going, I'm going to go and lose weight. Even though the other person might be like, wow, I really support you in doing that. Unconsciously, they probably don't because you're going to reflect back to them what they're not doing. So it's much
mm,
easier to keep you the same rather than other people have to look at their shortcomings or the way that they're not showing up. But what that means is as we get more successful and we move, we often start to lose the
mm,
people around us that were always our supporting structures. But it's realizing that that's actually just a social agreement that's no longer serving me anymore. And I need to either adjust that social agreement for a new way of working, or I may just have to start loving you from over there.
Mm,
because it doesn't mean that I don't want you in my life, but if you are not on the train where I'm going, you're holding me back. And
mm,
I think that is probably one of the most difficult, and I'm in a situation like that at the moment, something, and it's very daunting and scary, and I don't want to move out of this dynamic, and I don't want, but I know that staying in this dynamic is keeping me, holding me back.
where you are instead
Yeah,
of moving forward.
exactly. And then it's scary, and like none of us want to be like feel like that we're alone, or none of us want to go into like networking groups and not know anyone and have to yeah, it's scary.
Right.
You know what I mean? And have to go up and introduce yourself to people and talk to them about what you do and try to build new relationships and new friendships. And but when you realize your level of discomfort is
Hmm.
equivalent to your level of growth.
Yeah,
So the more
absolutely.
so the more uncomfortable you are, I'm like, give yourself an applause because that is directly correlated to your level of growth. So if
Yeah.
you're anxious and worried and stressed and you don't know how you're going to do it and you're just panicking, congratulations. You're on a good path.
Hmm.
If you're sitting back going, oh yeah, things are fine, so I think there's a lot, and I think especially in business and as women, especially, I think we do need to, because we're very much more emotional beings, and to be able to sit with ourselves and identify the emotions and be like, just but because I'm feeling a certain type of way, that's not a definition of who I am or how I show up. Like we get up, we
Exactly.
put our makeup on, we put our heels on, we put our big girl pants on, and we go out into the world and we show up. Even when we don't feel like showing up.
Hmm.
People say
Yeah.
fake it till you make it. I'm like, no, just go and act like you belong.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, and most, maybe not most, but a lot of women, I feel the people that talk with me are, they've for so many years just put one foot in front of the other and they're busy caring for others. They're bringing up their family. They're, doing what they need to do to help the family move forward or survive even sometimes. That they lose themselves. They don't remember how strong they are and how resilient they are. And maybe they don't even remember their dreams and what they wanted.
It's especially when because now I'm don't have kids, right? So I can't
Mm-hmm.
speak to what it's like to have children, but I can see from all of the interactions with all of my friends that have kids. The first part of it is as a woman, they get into a dynamic with a man or a relationship with a man. We all do that. And then we sort of lose ourselves in that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we're sort of like taking care of them. Like it's scientifically, I was reading some research the last day that men benefit much more from the relationship than the women do
I've
because
heard
we're
that too.
pouring into them. Like as a woman, everything that you give us, we're going to amplify. You give us sperm, we create a baby. You give us, a house, we create a home. We amplify things. So I think that's the first kind of line that we lose ourselves in the relationship dynamic, right? Then the
Mm-hmm.
kids come along. Then you
Mm-hmm.
start to lose yourself to the kids, right? Because then the kids become the priority, and then the husband or the partner is the priority. And then the woman herself, unless she's very self-aware and able to put very strong boundaries in place about her own personal time, tends to lose her identity in that. And then the way that I see a lot of women lose their identity, they'll stop taking care of themselves. They're just too busy. They're not going to the gym. They're not working out. They're not dressing up. They're just, like you say, one foot in front of the other every
Mm-hmm.
day, just grinding. And then you arrive at a destination where either the relationship itself, collapses, or it just becomes stale because people are together for a very long time. The kids start getting their own lives, and they start going out and doing, and then the woman is left with herself to look in the mirror and go, who the hell are you?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like that they're only seeing each other for the first time, and then it takes a lot of courage and it takes a lot of strength and it's tough to be able to go, no, I'm going to claw back my version of myself. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to start. And the first way I talk to people, I'm like, just go to the gym. I'm like, get in the
Mm,
gym and start. It's really simple. Just craft out that time. And I don't care whether you think you have time or you don't have time. This is your time to go in and start to invest in yourself. And then, like, the surprising thing that most people don't realize when you go to the gym, it's really hard, it's really hard, it's really hard. And then 4 weeks, nobody notices. 8 weeks, people are going, you're doing something different. Like, what is it? Then 12 weeks, people are like, oh, what are you doing? How are you doing it? And with that, that builds your self-esteem. It builds your confidence. It makes you feel better. You look better. And then you're kind of more armored up to be able to go out into the world and go, okay, maybe I want to start that business.
mm,
Maybe I want to get out of the house. Maybe I want to do something different. But it's very difficult to embark on something new when you're not feeling good inside.
right,
You're not
right.
going to be feeling confident in yourself,
Mm,
right? You're not going to be feeling capable. You're going to feel, a whole bunch of things. So I'm just like, just start with the gym, get on top of the
mm,
nutrition. And it sounds simple in theory, but
mm,
it's
mhm.
really, it's really not. And very few people really have mastered being able to, they say to me, what's the most important muscle in your body? And I said, the one that controls your hand to your mouth. That's it, if you crack that one, that's the one that's going to make all of the difference. And I think
Mhm.
that having women invest, just creating that time for themselves is just so, so important.
Well, in any movement, just getting your body to move,
Yeah.
it helps create that resilience against the stressors. It kind of releases some of that.
Hmm.
Plus, getting out, if you're taking a walk out in nature, you're also getting the benefit of being one with nature and feeling better and having the sunshine on your face and feeling the ground under your feet. It's a grounding experience just being outside.
Absolutely. And then, like, even when weightlifting in the gym, building that muscle, right? Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
literally building yourself back up. And as women, we're always defying gravity, right? We're always, everything's going south, right? So we need
Yes.
to have a counter attack, to make sure that, but there, like, studies have shown, like, people who have strong thighs are living longer. It's better for your cognition. Like, I was out for dinner a couple of weeks ago with one. He's a doctor, very heavily involved in stem cells, embryonic stem cells, and
Mm-hmm.
all of that. And he was talking about the fact that it was just so, so important to be doing weight-bearing exercises.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a saying, if you don't move it, you lose it. But
Right.
literally, like, I see that with my mom now at home. Like, my mom's in her 70s, and she hasn't ever really kind of worked out or had, like, she used to, but not no weight bearing. And now I see so many different things deteriorating. Like, and it's
Mm-hmm.
very scary to
Mm-hmm.
think, so I'm just like, and don't allow it to get to the point where you're not able to lift the weights.
Exactly.
We
Exactly.
need
And
an
you can see
intervention.
that.
Hmm.
Yeah, you see that in older friends and your parents and grandparents and um yeah, bone health even is
Yeah.
important, for, the weight bearing balance, all of that, like the ability to be able to feel strong enough and in balance with your body to not fall, to have some of the falls as we age.
Yeah. Yeah, and that because most people, like, they don't fall. They say when people fall and they say, "Oh, she fell and broke her hip." It's actually, no, your hip
Mm,
broke and you fell.
yeah,
It's like,
exactly.
and then as we go into premenopause or menopause, our estrogen levels drop, and
Mm-hmm.
that, so the bones slowly start to, like, disintegrate. Well, we have the win, so we're up against it, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like you've got to try to make that investment. But the gym is just so much more than, like, looking good. It's like discipline, it's dedication, it's commitment, it's hard work, it's consistency. And if you
Mm-hmm.
can harvest those values in that one activity, those will trickle into all the other areas of life.
Mm-hmm.
But it just takes a mindset. People say to me, "How are you always so motivated?" I'm like, I'm not motivated. I don't want to go at all, but I'm disciplined. That's the difference.
Mm.
It's a discipline.
Mm-hmm.
It's a commitment that I've made to myself. And I think when I heard this, and I thought it's really true, when we make a commitment to ourselves, right? Let's say we say, okay, I'm going to get up next week. I'm going to go gym on Monday, Tuesday. When Monday comes, you don't go gym. Tuesday comes, you don't go gym. Wednesday comes, you don't go to the gym. What that actually does is it reaffirms to your subconscious mind you can't trust what you tell yourself.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And I think that's really important because if
Yeah.
you can't trust yourself,
Mm.
who can you trust?
Well, and whatever goals that you set, then it becomes, well, I'm not going to do that either.
Yeah. How you do one thing is how you do everything.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah. It's very important. Have
But
you
yeah,
always been so disciplined, especially about the gym?
yeah, well, so I've always been competitive, and
Okay.
that yeah, I've always been a competitive person. But so I spent 10 years in corporate, like I said, got it all the way to the
Yeah.
top, then realized that's not where I wanted to be. And I left corporate and I took 2 years where I was like, I'm just going to travel around the world. I'm going to find myself or whatever you want to, you want to say people do. But then, like I was always used to get attention because of my physique, because I was always quite athletic. And then people were like, you should do fitness modeling, you should try it. And I was like, "Oh, really?" And then I was like, okay, I was always told not to be a show off as a child. Don't be too
Uh,
big for your boots. Don't show off. People won't like you. All of this. So I was kind of going through a lot of self-development at that time. And I thought, well, what could I do to kind of unravel that conditioning? And I was like, well, I could become a fitness model. That's the ultimate show off, to be honest. So I did that, and I had a lot of success in it. I won the world championships in Ireland, the UK, and I came second in America. But very
Fantastic.
competitive. But that sort of really anchored me into the discipline. But for me, it was never about the winning. It was never even about the physique. It was more about setting a goal that I didn't know could I accomplish, knowing
Mm-hmm.
that having a fixed date that it had to be accomplished by. Like I knew I was accountable because I used to use social media and document my fitness journey. So then I
Mm.
knew I was on the hook,
Mm-hmm.
that I
You're
couldn't back
accountable
out.
now. Mm-hmm.
I couldn't back out. But in saying that, like we talk about, not a lot of people so I went from the boardroom to the bikini. Like it was very unconventional. I think LinkedIn
Uh-huh.
thought I had lost my mind. They were like, you must be having some sort of midlife crisis. But having the discipline to do that and to show up even when no, my mom didn't want me to do it, my family didn't want me to do it. Like people were like, oh, aren't you embarrassed? Like, oh, do you know what I mean? You can't do that. What will people think? All of this kind of
Mm.
stuff. So it goes back to these idea of these social
Mm-hmm.
agreements. I had social agreements with people that I was going to be a corporate executive, and that's who I was, and that's what I did. And then when I
Uh-huh.
decided, actually, no, I'm going to become a fitness model, they were like, well, no, 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 that's not what we agreed.
Uh-huh.
That's not the dynamic. And I think that's the same. It's back to what we spoke about earlier. No matter what change you start to make, you are going to face resistance
Mm-hmm.
from from people around you, but it's just overcoming that resistance and being like, you know what? I get one shot at this. This is not a dress rehearsal. I
Mm-hmm.
I can't come back and do this again. So I'm going to give it everything that I got.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, and hearing you speak, first of all, the first thought that came to me was, would do we say that to little boys? Don't be too big. Don't be big for your britches. Don't be a show off.
No,
Not
yeah,
usually.
no.
Not in the same way, anyway.
No. Or like, and there's because I grew up in a very Catholic household in Ireland, so
Mm.
like we had the whole religious thing thrown on top of
Oh, yeah.
we were going to hell if we did it.
A little guilt going on.
No offense to God. Like I believe in God or whatever, but I do believe that like there was ways and means that the education was used to almost control and manipulate us into certain lines of
Oh, for
thinking,
sure.
as as like, and even down to like how they used to make us dress. Like we had to have
Mm.
skirts that were down to our ankles, and you couldn't show like, even if your ankles were like on display, like this was problematic. What the hell? So I think that we are sort of conditioned to not really be seen, not be too big for your boots, don't be too confident. Oh, if you're too strong, a man won't want you. You
Mm.
know, all of these kind of, you know, and even today I still battle that with people say, you know, about being an alpha female. And it gets even more challenging because the more success you create, the smaller the dating pool becomes. Because
Mm.
it's like, you know, okay, I got my own house, I got my own car, I run my own businesses, you know what I mean? Like I don't need, you're not going to lead with your wallet when you're dealing with me
Ugh,
because I don't need you to. And then I think there can be societally, women can be sort of oppressed to be made feel that that's incorrect and you should be at home and the homemaker and you should be, you know, like being super, but you can still be strong and be in your feminine.
of
Like if
course.
but I think that's definitely we don't want to get too independent, right? Because we don't want to be the only thing a woman cannot create is a male energy in a household. We cannot create that. That's probably the only thing that you can offer me that I cannot create for myself. I cannot have a masculine energy in the household to make me feel safe. You know, I cannot create that for myself. But aside
To
from
make you feel safe from what, though?
so, but you know, as in as to have a family, like you know, when you walk, it's always nice to have like a masculine energy around. Like you know,
Hmm.
it's kind of like a to because I've always felt that always, and I'm always attracted to like very strong, big, like build.
Mm.
It's like a, and maybe it's a childhood wound or something about, you know, it could be, but to want to have that energy where you feel that you have someone in your corner who's a masculine that's like, I got you.
Oh, yeah.
I
Well, to
got
me, that feels like a partnership, and we're all different. But I don't know. For me, I'm looking at the support that I need, and I'm so fortunate to have the hubby that I do because he is masculine, but he
amazing.
also gets me. You know, he knows that I'm
Yeah.
strong, and he likes that. And I don't think we would work if I wasn't. You know, I don't think it would work between us.
And that's an amazing dynamic to create, right? Because like I've been in dynamics, not of recent, thankfully, but previously where my success was admired
Hmm.
until my success was more than their success.
Oh gosh.
And then it was problematic. And that's a very destructive. And I think there's a lot of women in that situation right now where
Mm.
they have gone out and made a change and gone and do something. And then you had someone who loved you unconditionally while you were this version of you. And now you
Hmm.
become this new version of you, and you might find that the love is not so conditional anymore. It even may even be a little bit destructive. And that was one of the things that I found the most damaging at that time was like I was like, how could someone who loves me or tells me that they love me this much be so like hurtful and you know or
Jealous a little.
jealous and
Hmm.
dismissive
Mm.
and you know like making out like things weren't like a big deal like or if I
Hmm.
did like you know not recognizing accolades not you know just kind of be like oh yeah
Mm.
whatever yeah you know
Hmm.
and I think that is a very you hit the nail on the head is when you end up in a dynamic where you have a male energy trying to compete with the female energy that's a
Hmm.
problem.
Hmm.
That's a problem right there. And it's a big problem because the men and women are not supposed to compete with each other. That's really not like we're not programmed and conditioned to do that. And if you have a relationship or a dynamic in your life where a man is trying to compete with you, it's like my, you know, I won't swear, but she calls it a bitch energy. She's like, you got a bitch energy. We don't deal with that. You know, but I think you got to be careful with that, right? Especially as women, as you build success, that you've got to be very careful who your choice of partner is.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, and that energy you're speaking of, a man wouldn't be described like that. And okay, it pisses me off.
Yeah, yeah,
That there's this dichotomy, there's this double standard, and it's just, if the two of you in a relationship are both comfortable in your own skin, are both strong in your own skin, and are on your own path to being a better person, a better human, then I'm not in competition with you. We're
absolutely.
partners. We're complementing each other. We're supporting each other, lifting each other up, and helping each other grow to be the better person.
Yeah. And that's exactly the dynamic that you want, right? You
Hmm.
because you want someone to be in your corner being your champion. They're your
Yes.
person.
Yeah.
They're your
Yeah.
person. And if they're not doing that, you've got to pay very close attention to that.
Yeah.
Because it's
Yeah.
very, very, very damaging. And it can be
Hmm.
underhandedly damaging because
Right.
you don't expect it. And then
Right.
you get a feedback and you're like, wow, like
Wait, what just happened?
yeah, you're like
Hmm.
trying to process that information, be like, why
Hmm.
would you say that? Like, that's not supportive.
Hmm.
But I think we talked about how do you learn these things? We learn by doing, right? And then
Yeah.
we learn about what not to do.
Yeah. Well, and it can sneak up on you too. It can be just little things. And
Yeah,
then all of a sudden those grow as you grow
yeah.
if they
Like
don't as well.
I had a mentor years ago, and I really do try to apply this in all of my life. But sometimes I fail and I make allowances, and then I learn my lesson again. But
The little pebble gets a little bit bigger.
yeah, exactly. But he said behavior is inherent. And he
Mm,
said, the person that you meet today, the behaviors that they're showing you today is who they are.
mm,
And it's inherent. And unless there's some spontaneous event that is a catalyst for change, you either accept the behavior as it is today, knowing it may not improve,
mm.
or you walk away from the situation. And I think where a lot of us face a challenge, we see very early on behaviors we don't like, or that,
Mm.
and it was like the red flags,
Hmm.
they're
Trust your
waving,
gut.
and yeah, they were like, oh, let me just go over and see how red that flag is.
That's kind of beige. I don't know.
Yeah. Let's rationalize and justify. And I think you've got to be really careful. You got
Yeah.
to be really careful with the behaviors you see in the beginning. Like the man that you meet today is the man that is
Mm,
going to be showing up in your life. And then 6 months down the line, if you're trying to orchestrate or change him or manipulate him or move him or trying to shift him in a different direction, it's not going to work. He
no.
showed you who he was from day one, but you just didn't want to believe him.
Mm, hmm.
And
Yeah.
I think that's the most women are like we're all struggling with that at some level.
Yeah.
So
Right.
yeah,
Taking ownership of that, understanding that, sometimes you want something so badly
yeah.
that you overlook some of these things. And not just with relationships, but even with business and with, you
We
know,
fall in love with the potential.
yes, yes, we want it so badly. We have
We have
hope.
the rose tinted glasses on and we walk around the world with our rose tinted glasses and we ignore what the reality of the situation.
Hmm.
And I think that's where there's that like level of and it's about boundaries. Setting about
Hmm.
what am I going and not going to tolerate, and not boundaries for the sake of telling someone, oh, if you do this, I'm going. It's like, no, if you do this, like you're out. There's no second chances. There's no sometimes people say, oh, you're very black and white. It's not always that black and white, but I've sort of learned that anytime I find myself in a gray area, I normally end up like getting burnt
Mm.
because
Yeah.
and it's the same in business. Like I have a new rule in business now. If I have a problem in the first 30 days with the client, I end the contract.
Mm.
No questions asked. It's even a clause in my contracts. I'm like, if we have a problem in the first 30 days, I'm not because I have learned the problems that I ignored in the beginning are normally the problems that come back to bite me in the ass 6 months later.
Right. Right. And the exceptions that you make for certain people or for certain
Yeah.
businesses or, yeah, certain
Yeah.
situations.
And then you never, because when I first started the agency, obviously you don't really know what you're doing when you're starting. And then you're
Hmm.
kind of doing discounts and you're giving people extra stuff and you're
Hmm.
doing things for free and you're doing all of this. But like when people pay, they pay attention.
Yeah.
Right. And when you start making allowances or discount or allowing invoices to be late or having people call you on the weekend or calling you at nighttime or, with these urgent tasks and all of that, like even though you can think in the beginning, oh wow, I'm really servicing this client and I'm doing really well. You're really not, because you are dictating to them what the rules of the game are. So if you start
Hmm.
answering calls at weekend, then they think they can call you at weekends. If you start taking things late at night, then they think that they can send it late at night. If you're supposed to have an invoice paid on the first of the month and it's the 10th of the month and your invoice is not paid, then they think that that's acceptable. So we really have got to be strict with our boundaries about and sometimes I feel guilty about it. I'm like, my team works 9 to 5. They don't work on the weekends. Now I'm
That's
always working.
amazing.
It's the
Yeah.
truth. I'm always working. My phone, I always have my phone, but we do have that because otherwise it just gets out of control really quickly.
Don't you feel like that was a thing with corporate too? I felt like I've been out of corporate for a number of years, a long time. But back in the day, it felt very much like, no, you're just expected to do these things. And when you get something, an email over the weekend asking for something, you just do it. Or if a client asks you for something, you do it. Doesn't matter what time of day or what it is.
Yeah, and that's like conditioning. I think we had the hustle culture, and that was really and I'm not
Yeah.
saying there's anything wrong with that, right? I'm like I've been working 80 to 100-hour weeks for the last 5 years, so it would be the pot calling the kettle black for me to tell someone that's not the thing to do. However, there is I do believe work-life balance is elusive, but you have to be in control of your time. Like that, that's really, really important because if you're not respectful of your time, that
Hmm.
can come down to showing up on meetings on times, like allowing people, if you have a 20-minute discovery call, it's 20 minutes. It's not
Hmm.
an hour,
Hmm.
and if you have someone who said that they're going to pay you on this date, then it's like not starting the work until that invoice is paid. These kind of things, because if you don't take control of those aspects like your time and your money, it's two things I always say to people: don't play with my time and don't play with my money, and we'll get on perfectly fine. Just don't
Hmm.
don't waste either one of those things.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have those boundaries in place, then it's very difficult for people to actually they're gonna judge you by how you measure how you treat yourself.
Well, yeah, they're looking for the evidence. And if you work for them on a weekend, then they have the
Yeah.
evidence that that's what you do.
Yeah. And then,
Well,
and then what you'll find that often the requests start to get bigger. They
yeah,
don't get
exactly.
smaller.
Right, right.
It's like you get, oh, can you just do this one thing? And then this one thing turns into two things, and then this two things
Hmm.
turns into three things. And before you know it, you're overwhelmed. Your team is overwhelmed because they're like, a lot of when we're working, they're employees, right? They're not
Hmm.
entrepreneurs. They're like, I'm not working 7 days a week, 24/7, trying to cater for a response. These are my boundaries.
Hmm.
And I think, but if we don't have that boundary at the top, then it's never going to trickle into the bottom.
Right, right. Well, and it's one thing as a CEO or as your director of your business to be working more and to doing the extra stuff. But to ask someone else to do that, any
Yeah,
of us to ask someone else to expect that someone else would work on the weekend or in the evenings or on family time, that's
yeah.
a whole nother ball game.
Yeah. And it's finding that balance, right? It really is a
Hmm.
balance
Yeah.
because, if you like continue just to, and still trying to find it, it's always a work in progress.
Hmm.
Because every time I seem to finish one thing, I seem to start another thing, and then I go back to square one all over
Wait, okay,
again.
got it. Yeah.
But yeah, it's like this is working now. What else can we create?
Hmm.
It's not always the best thing, but it is that because like you're never going to end up in a situation at the end of your life where you go, I really wish I'd worked more.
Right. Right. That's not what people say when you ask them at the end of their life. What do you wish is there anything you would have done differently?
Yeah. It's like I don't know what that book is called for that woman. I can't remember where she went around at the hospice and I'll have to think about it, but
Hmm.
she went around and she interviewed all these people and it was like spend time with my family, work less, and follow through on my dreams. There was the
Mm.
thing that was really the main things about how a lot of people arrived to a destination. Some people more sudden than others. They got sick quickly, and they've been putting off doing things.
Yeah, for themselves or for their dream. And don't you feel like those dreams that that we have, they're our purpose. When we walk towards those, we're moving towards our purpose and to serving others. It's tied together.
Like every one of us has a whisper. When we
Mm-hmm.
lie down at night, there's always a whisper of something you could be doing or something that you just cannot get really it out of your mind.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're just like, oh, I really should do that. And it's like you don't want to sleep on those whispers, right? Even maybe it's the book you want to write, maybe it's the course you want to create, maybe it's the event you want to organize for women to speak at. Like, maybe it's something you want to do with your family, whatever it is, don't ignore the whispers.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Those are the regrets.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think that that's what we want to avoid is we're all gonna do things wrong and nothing's gonna be perfect, but you just want to show up as a good human and go, I gave it my best shot.
Yes. I did my best.
I did my best,
Yeah.
in the seed of every adversity is this equivalent opportunity. No matter what happened, I still continued to show up for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Aoife, there was one other thing that you said early on that made me think, okay, so you did these things that your family maybe didn't support or they didn't understand, and you did them anyway. Was there a little piece of you that was like, watch me?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, like well, when I did the UK championships, I just actually separated out of a relationship. And
Mm,
he was actually my trainer at the time. Before so and
mm,
I carried on and no shade to him, whatever, like we're
mm-hmm,
cool. But it was very the end of the relationship was very damaging for me, and I was in a huge amount of pain. And I didn't really know how to manage that pain, so then I just
mm-hmm,
started to use the gym as the vehicle to
mm-hmm,
to express and to be able to do that. But like there was no better, because he was like, it told me you're not going to make it, you don't have what it takes to do this, and
mm.
these kind of things.
Fuel.
Yeah, for sure, right? And that's the process of alchemy, right? How do we spin the lead into gold? So I use that fuel and all that pain and all that hurt and all of that to propel me forward. And then, like, when I won, it's like, because I won the overall in that show. And, my friends they were like, you might as well have got on that stage and put your middle finger up to the world. But the irony was by the time I arrived at the destination, I wasn't in that much pain anymore. I had moved through it. So then I was
Yeah.
able to enjoy the results. So I think sometimes you just got to throw yourself into something and just like grit your teeth and go
Mm-hmm.
like and ignore the naysayers and ignore and like my family, like they came around eventually, but like, and I
Yeah.
can understand their position in the beginning as well. Like, my dad never came to any of my shows, but I can understand. Like, he doesn't want his daughter parading around an arena with hundreds of people in a bikini staring at her. Like, I can understand that. My mom was like, what are you doing? It's like, have you lost your mind? But they came around and then they were supportive and eventually, but I had to be willing to take the journey in the absence of support in the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's strong.
Yeah. And I think that that's really where we come about the resilience and the self-reliance.
Yes, can see that.
Your ability to be able to sit with yourself, sit with your
Mm-hmm.
emotions, not
Mm-hmm.
be reactive, not have to call everyone, collude and gossip, and just be able to sit with something and be going, yeah, this sucks. Yeah, it absolutely sucks. But it'll suck a
Mm-hmm.
little less tomorrow and a little less the day after that. And
Mm-hmm.
what can I do to take this energy that it's creating in my body, this anxiety, this pain, this nervousness?
Mm-hmm.
What can I do to be able to use that fuel, like you said, to
Mm-hmm.
be able to create something amazing?
Yeah. One day at a time. What can I do today that's going to move the needle?
And that's all you got. Like
Mm-hmm.
it is one day at it. Like whenever I give myself, like when something goes like fundamentally wrong, I'll give myself 30 like days. And I'm like,
Hmm.
there is no big bold decision or nothing being made until
Hmm.
I get to the end, because I know I'm not thinking clearly. I'm emotional,
Mm.
and I'm like, just get through today, and then at the end of like I'll have like a stopgap, like 14 days. I'll do a little bit of self and how do I feel about the situation now,
Mm.
and then I'll do like another one at the end of 30 days. And you would be so surprised how much, if you put in like positive habits back into your life, how you can pretty much overcome any adversity. And by the time you get to day 30, and journaling is always super helpful.
Yes.
You can look back and be
Hmm.
like, this is what I was feeling. By the time you get to the day 30, you're looking back at the situation and you're like, either it doesn't seem that bad anymore,
Hmm.
or you've kind of moved past it, or there's been other events that have happened that make you see why it happened. But
Hmm.
like it's you've just got to sit with that, and there's no cure. Like no one can make you feel better. There's no hugs and kisses that are going to fix it. You've just got to sit in it.
Yeah. Well, and it's such great advice too to do those benchmarks at the halfway point and at the end. Because when you're in it, you don't see it. You don't see it from the big picture. You're right in the forest, so you don't see the trees.
Yeah, and you're emotional and you're upset, and you can, well, yeah, it can be business, it can be relationship, it can be life, it can be
Hmm.
family. You're hurt, you're all of these kind of things.
Hmm.
But I like, no, maybe it's not, the best, but I'll tend to throw myself into a creative project or into the gym, or I'll give myself some goal that'll distract me. And people say, "Oh, you're just distracting yourself." I'm like, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm
Got a
not going to
problem with
sit.
that?
Yeah, I'm not going to sit and wallow in this. Yes, is what's happened is really bad and it's terrible, and I don't feel good about it, and
Mhm.
it is what it is. However, me sitting down feeling sorry for myself is not going to help anything. So,
Right.
trying to, and it can be a bit of tough love on yourself, but try to find something that has a very clear start date and end date. And
Hmm.
then just move, like you said, exactly, move towards the milestones. And your
Yeah.
only focus is on getting to that milestone one day at a time.
Yeah. I love it. Well, and then to be able to document it as you go too, so that you're really clear on what did I start with, and now what have I moved through? What's my outcome? And to be able to see it on paper, like as you're journaling, that's super important.
Well, because you can go back, and because sometimes when things happen to us, we don't even realize how emotionally affected we are by situations
Exactly.
until you document and journal it. But when you go back after retrospectively, when you get a little bit stronger, and then you go back and you evaluate what happened, and you evaluate how that made you feel, and all of the you often you'll find that you get out the other side of that and you're like, you can keep that 10 foot away from me because I don't want
Hmm.
anything to do with it, because I'm not
Yeah.
giving you back that control or power over me to make me feel like that again. And
Right.
no one make we make ourselves feel like that, but like the idea that you would revisit situations and outcomes. I see when people break up with people, they're like after a week, they're like, no, I want to get back together. And I'm like, you haven't even given yourself a chance. Like
Right.
just give yourself 30 days. Just
Hmm.
just sit and be stoic and don't contact and don't do any of these things. Just give yourself 30 days and then reevaluate. And if it's meant to be, well then fantastic, that's great. If
Yeah.
it's not meant to be, you've gotten stronger, you've invested in yourself, you're journaling, you started going to the gym, you're feeling better, you're looking better, you're still winning.
There's absolutely no harm in that
No,
30 days.
no.
Yeah.
Just to take that like be a little bit more stoic about it.
Hmm. Wonderful. Okay, so if I've kept you a while, so I love to ask my guests, what's your favorite glass of wine or beverage? What do you like to drink?
Yeah, so I'm a Pinot Grigio woman.
Mm.
Yeah, or like a simple a good cab. I'd have that as well if I was to have a red or a vodka soda and lime. That's
Mm.
I don't drink a whole lot because not because I have any problem with the drinking or alcohol, or people drinking alcohol. I have a problem with the hangover.
Oh,
That's what I have a
yeah.
problem with. I enjoy the socializing side of it, but the hangover side of it, I cannot deal with. It's like
Mm.
putting bad gas in a Ferrari, and then when you're trying to show up in your business the next day, I'm like,
Mm.
it's it's just not worth it. So I try to keep it pretty limited. But yeah, if I was a glass of Pinot Grigio or a cab if I'm having a steak or if I'm out in a restaurant, I might have like a vodka soda lime.
Nice. Yeah. Hydration is the
What
key.
about you? What's your favorite?
Oh, my favorite. It depends on the day.
Yeah.
Some days are, yeah, and who you're enjoying it with or what you're eating, that whole thing. I'm a good Prosecco lover, though. I like a
Hmm.
nice, crisp bubble
Yeah.
champagne if I can, but
Yeah,
Prosecco,
Prosecco. I like Prosecco even more so than champagne sometimes. I think Prosecco can
yeah,
be a safer bet.
a little bit lighter. Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay. Do you have a favorite memory or can you recall a fun memory with girlfriends sharing a glass of Pinot or
Oh my
cab?
God. So you know what? I was at one of my girlfriends last night. I just really enjoy actually sitting down when with a group of women when we're just being super honest and authentic with each other. And having
Yes.
and just like, having conversation and just being like on we went out last night. She was asking me about my business and what was happening. And I know stuff that's happening in her business. And because on the outside people would always perceive, oh, Aoife has it all together. It's not the case, right? Aoife's in same challenges, the higher you go, the bigger the challenge is. But to sit and go, well, yeah, but this is happening. But then what about this, and this, and this, and this? You didn't know this was happening. To give her a little bit of comfort to go, okay, it's also happening over here. And I think as women, when we can be very honest with each other, and talk about relationships, talk about business, talk about the dynamics we have to manage, then we don't feel like we are so isolated. Because
No
sometimes we can think,
walls up.
yeah, so we think something's only happening to us. And then
Mm.
we talk to someone else and they go, oh, no, that's happening to me too. And we're like, well, why didn't you ever tell me? Like, like
You
I
don't have
did.
to be that strong.
I'll give you one example. So I did a campaign. It was for MCELA, which is the pelvic floor. It's a machine
Oh,
for women,
okay.
right? For women who have prolapse or who either have like their bladder because of having kids. So this machine, not a lot of people know about it, but I was doing the marketing for it when I was in Ireland. You
Mm.
basically go and you sit on it, and it's the equivalent to 20,000 Kegels in a 30-minute session,
Oh
right?
my.
So I've seen women going from who couldn't walk, a mile without needing to know where the next toilet was because they couldn't
Mm.
control it, to actually being able to like go on a car journey for 5 hours and not have any problems. So it's very transformational for any women. It's called EMSELA, MSS, no, EMSELLA. I think that,
Okay.
but my point is, when I started doing the research into it and working and doing all the marketing and I started working, talking to women, like so many women had this problem.
Hmm.
And I was like, but why do you not talk about it? They were like, we were embarrassed. We thought it was just
Hmm.
us. We thought it, and I thought, like, isn't that terrible that like we're like shamed into thinking that we can't discuss things. So anything
Hmm.
that is any sort of setting like that where women can have an honest conversation, I'm all for it. Or anything, any ways that like, I'll talk about things that other people don't want to talk about. I'll bring it up. I'm like, no problem, let's
It's
and then
real. It's raw.
you light the match, and
Mm.
then everyone wants to talk about it. So yeah, so I think that was kind of one of the things that I learned as women. It's just so important to be like, especially with our bodies and what's happening with us and our hormones and our
Mm.
relationships and our business. Just be honest with each other.
Mm.
Just be honest.
That's amazing. That's yeah, very great. I agree. I love a good conversation and when you can be real and raw and share things and you don't feel so alone.
No, no. Because
Yeah.
we're all changing. Like as we get to certain parts of our life, things change.
Hmm.
Like
Yep.
circumstances can change, our bodies change, our hormones change, our feelings change, our emotions change,
Yep.
our mental changes. Like there's a lot of changes going on. So
Hmm.
being able to sit down in a peer group and be open and honest about those changes is very important.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, okay. And one really awkward side note, I have to apologize. I've been saying, even after you pronounced it, I said Aoife. It's Aoife.
Yeah, that's okay. You're close enough. Yeah, it's Aoife. Yeah. Don't worry.
Oh gosh.
I honestly, I'm more surprised if someone says it correctly than incorrectly, to be honest. Because I realized when I moved to America, you're very precious about pronouncing people's names correctly. And then I was like, look at the spelling of my name. How are you ever going to get, every time I do a speaking event, people are like, can I see your name badge? I'm like, it's not going to help you. You're better off not. It's just going to confuse you even more. Don't even look. So I don't worry. You know what I mean? I get it. It's a complicated name. The spelling doesn't help.
Well, that's very gracious. Thank you.
You're welcome. But thank you so much for having me. It's been a great conversation. I really appreciate it.
Me too. I enjoyed getting to know you a little bit, and your story is fantastic. It's very empowering for all of us to listen to.
Yeah, no, I definitely would. I would like to do more. When I wrote my book and I went back, I was very much into doing workshops but then you just get caught up in the rat race and then you create
Yeah.
businesses and then you kind of
Yeah.
lose yourself. And then, we talk about the whisper, right?
Yeah.
I think that is my whisper. My
Mm.
whisper is to go back to talking a little bit more about mindset and because building the companies, I've landed very much in my masculine energy. Like you push, 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 drive the company, drive the sales, drive the leads, drive
Hustle.
the business. And then,
Hmm.
hustle, 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 hustle. And they got that independence. But it's actually, well, how can you relax back? Because it's all about mindset. At the end of the day, like you could, it's not about the money, it's about the mindset. The mindset creates the money.
Right. Right. It's all your strength and moving toward what's pulling you instead of pushing it away because you want to stay safe or
Yeah.
comfortable.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah. So thank you for giving me the opportunity. You're slowly feeding into my whisper that I should talk a little bit
Oh,
more
good.
to women entrepreneurs. Because I think sometimes we undervalue. I had someone yesterday came around, he said, can we start doing B-roll of you? And I was like, why would anyone want to do B-roll? I was like, I don't think my life is that interesting. But he made a point. He was like, there's people that would like to know how you do what you do and what is your daily thought
Hmm.
process and things because like my social media is very curated, what I mean, it's there's not it's events or it's me at it's production videos or it's scripted content. It's not
Not a
like
conversation or a off the
no
cuff
not
or
yeah
mhm.
because I often don't think that I'm that interesting. So I'm like
That's
what
incorrect.
I know. But I think that there's a humility in it, but maybe I took it to another level. Maybe I need to go back and that and be like, well, actually, are you just making an excuse not to shine?
There it is. There
See?
it is. Hmm.
I think that's a good kind of way to segue to end it. It's an evolution.
Yes.
The minute you think that you got it, you don't got it. Like you just go back around and it's perpetual because a lot
Yeah.
of us are dealing with very deep conditioning at very young
Hmm.
and early ages that some of us aren't even aware of. And then you can think that you interrupt a pattern of behavior, but it'll just go and it'll hide for a while and then it'll come back in a different guise.
Yeah. Yeah. We're constantly growing. And if we're not, that's not a good alternative.
No, if you're not growing, you're dying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, okay. Well, thank you so much. I really
Thank
appreciate your
you.
energy and everything.
Oh, thank you so much. Where can people find you to check out all
Yeah,
the
so
things?
probably the easiest one would be on LinkedIn. So that's Aoife Roche, Aoife, and it's Roche, or on Instagram, Aoife, Aoife, Jroche. You can find me on there. Yeah, it's pretty easy. Not too many people have
Okay.
that name here, so
Yeah.
it's pretty quick.
Yes. Thank you so much.
I
Have a
appreciate you.
great
Right.
day.
Thanks so much. You take care. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye
Bye.
bye. That's a wrap on this episode of Penny for Your Shots. If you loved today's conversation, don't let the inspiration stop here. Get my weekly insider updates straight to your inbox. It's where I spill behind the scenes goodies, exclusive tips, and all the fun stuff I don't always share on the podcast. Sign up now at pennyforyourshots.com/insider. I'll see you in your inbox next Thirsty Thursday. Cheers!